packet rattled along the overgrown driveway, spitting gravel against the wrought-iron gates of Blackwood Estate. Rain lashed against the windshield, blurring the already faded grandeur of the mansion looming ahead. Elias Thorne, his face grim, adjusted his hat, the brim shielding his eyes from the downpour. Silas Blackwood, pale and drawn, fidgeted in the passenger seat, his hands clasped tightly in his lap. "You sure about this, Mr. Thorne?" Blackwood's voice was barely a whisper, strained with anxiety. "You summoned me, Mr. Blackwood. You assured me the situation wanted my expertise." Thorne's tone was deliberately neutral, professional. He didn't offer reassurance, didn't comment on the evident distress radiating from his client. Such things were irrelevant. Facts were what mattered. The gates creaked open as they approached, the sound grating against the silence that hung heavy over the estate. The house itself was a monument to neglect. Ivy clotted the stonework, windows were dark and lifeless, and the overall impression was one of faded glory and encroaching decay. Mr. Abernathy, the butler, a gaunt figure with perpetually nervous eyes, stood waiting on the porch. He offered a curt nod and ushered them inside. The interior was just as dilapidated as the exterior, dust lay thick on the furniture, portraits hung askew, and the air was heavy with the smell of damp and decay. "Mr. Blackwood wishes to speak with you immediately," Abernathy said, his voice tight with suppressed apprehension. He led them through a maze of corridors, the only sound the echoing footsteps and the relentless thrumming of rain against the windows. They arrived at the library, a vast chamber lined with towering bookshelves. A massive fireplace dominated one wall, though the hearth was cold and empty. Silas Blackwood stood by the fireplace, his face a mask of barely controlled panic. "Thank you for coming, Mr. Thorne," he said, his voice trembling. Things have been terrible." "Please elaborate, Mr. Blackwood," Thorne prompted, his gaze sweeping the room, taking in every detail. Blackwood launched into a frantic account of the disturbances that had plagued the estate for weeks. Objects moving on their own, whispers echoing through the halls, a pervasive sense of dread that seemed to seep into every corner of the house. "It started subtly," Blackwood explained. "A book falling from a shelf, a door creaking open, but it's escalated. Last night I saw something. A shadow. In the mirror. The mirror. It stood against one wall, an ornate piece of antique craftsmanship, its silvered surface clouded with age." Thorne's gaze lingered on it, an instinctive recognition stirring within him. "This mirror?" Thorne asked, his voice carefully neutral. "Yes. It belonged to my grandfather," Blackwood said, his eyes wide with fear. "He acquired it during his travels in Europe. He always warned us about it. Said it held something." Thorne approached the mirror, circling it slowly, his eyes scanning its surface. He could feel it, a subtle vibration in the air, a faint hum that resonated deep within him. "What exactly did you see in the mirror, Mr. Blackwood?" Thorne pressed, his gaze unwavering. "A face," Blackwood stammered. "A distorted, monstrous face. It seemed to be looking back at me." Thorne reached out and touched the surface of the mirror. A jolt of energy surged through him, a fleeting vision assaulting his mind, a twisted landscape of jagged peaks and swirling mists, shadowy figures lurking in the darkness. He recoiled, his hand tingling. "This is more than simple mischief, Mr. Blackwood," Thorne said, his voice low and serious. "This is a conduit, a gateway to something else." He stepped back, his eyes fixed on the mirror. "Something very old, very dangerous. Something that shouldn't be disturbed." Arthur Blackwood, Silas' nephew, sauntered into the library, a cynical smirk playing on his lips. "Sounds like a load of superstitious nonsense to me, uncle. Just a draft in an old house." "This is not a joke, Arthur," Silas snapped, his voice strained. Thorne ignored Arthur, his attention focused on the mirror. He noticed something he hadn't seen before, a faint symbol etched into the base of the mirror, partially obscured by dust and grime. It was a language he recognized, an ancient script associated with forgotten rituals and long-dead cults. "There's a marking here," Thorne said, pointing to the symbol. "A binding. It appears someone attempted to contain whatever this mirror accesses." He traced the symbol with his finger. "This may be the key to sealing this gateway, but it will require considerable skill and certain ingredients." A sudden gust of wind rattled the windows, extinguishing the few candles that remained lit in the room. A guttural whisper seemed to emanate from the mirror, sending a chill down Thorne's spine. "What was that?" Arthur asked, his smirk faltering. "Stay away from the mirror," Thorne warned, his voice barely above a whisper. He knew, with a certainty that resonated deep within his soul, that they had only just scratched the surface of a far greater darkness.